So, what if your success with your business mostly depends on how you handle your energy? And what if you have what I call something like energy confusion? Let's see if we can unpack this term with my guest today. I'm going to tell you in a bit who she is. And if you haven't been on my show, welcome. This is the show from the grind to grace. It's the show for the alternative entrepreneur, for the entrepreneur who is ready to flip the script and choose freedom first. Meaning, when freedom is not a destination, when freedom is the path, because when you create your business from the place of freedom, success just tags along. And so my desire is to make this the standard, the new standard in our industry, the default for you, for your children, for humanity. Because you're not here to earn freedom. You are here to create from freedom. The big question is, though, how do you do it? And that is what this podcast is about. And so now I want to welcome a guest of mine, the amazing Kelly. And Kelly is Feminine Energetics Mentor. What did I say about energy at the start? She's also Reiki master and teacher, ordained metaphysical minister, and international best-selling author. And I'd love to welcome you, Kelly, on my podcast. I'm so excited for this topic, and I'm so happy to have you here with me.
Thank you so much. And I have to say, I absolutely loved how you started that.
Thank you. I'm glad it's resonated.
You kind of summed everything up in one sentence. So
Yeah, very good. So I know that, and you know that this podcast mostly about creating success and life that you want from the place of freedom, from the place of flow. And I am almost sure you're not going to argue that the whole topic about energy is such a big piece in this.
absolutely, absolutely. Energy is what makes the difference between, struggling and success.
Yes. And it's fascinating how this whole thing is skipped for the most part in our industry, in entrepreneurship, right? I think we are starting to discover it, right? But I think it's still early stages. What do you think?
I think the way our society has designed success is not in line with what actually needs to happen, right? Like our society right now is very much the harder you work, the longer hours you work, the more education you have, the more success you're going to have. And, you work super, super hard for 40 years and then retire so that hopefully you can enjoy maybe 10 or 20 with doing what you actually want. And I think because the way it's looked at right now, what we do is considered very much like woo-woo, right?
Right.
For people that don't understand energy, that don't understand how it works. I think it's intimidating, and I think they just really need knowledge. They need to learn.
Yeah, I know. And my background in this online gig is marketing, selling, copywriting. Yet this podcast is mostly about the woo-woo stuff, which is like, what the hell is going on? right?
Mhm.
And so, I had that stuff in my life, in my personal life, on the other side of things, for quite a while, but it was not integrating in my business for whatever reason. I was so conditioned by what you were telling, about how our society works, that I didn't even consider weaving that into my business for quite a while, which is crazy. And as soon as it happened, everything became so much easier.
Absolutely. I mean, it makes the biggest difference. And I don't know about you, but I find it a little sad, but also a little frustrating that things can be so much easier than they are. But some people are just blocked. They're not ready to hear it yet, or they think that it's too far out there to work for them, or they don't believe it. But
Mm-hmm.
the ones that do focus on it, and the ones that take the time to look inside, to figure out what's going on, where they need expansion, that sort of thing. I mean, the abundance just flows when you finally get everything lined up the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and that was and is my goal with this podcast, to reach those who are sort of like are almost there, but not quite there, like as in like they suspect that they need to be doing, or looking wider, or and deeper as well. Like for me, it was for a while that where I kind of like, okay, yeah, there's something's off, and I know that, and I feel that. I don't know how to pinpoint that center of authenticity and power, and then when it clicked, but I know the whole bunch of people kind of sense that as something. They need to look at it from a slightly different angle, the way they grow their business, the way they look at success, but they are not sure where to start. And I think this is who I want to reach with this podcast. And,
Absolutely.
there's this whole other group of people who are still heavily in that mindset of hustle and grind. Eventually they might arrive, but I would like to and especially women, because, and I think we're going to talk about that more with you. But first, I would like to hear a little bit more for me and for the listener about how you arrived at this, at doing what you're doing now.
So I actually started my journey back in 2011. So, 14 years ago. And I was attending a gated community in Western New York. I'm in Ontario, I'm Canadian, but it's a very easy border to cross. And it's called Lilydale. It is where, it's owned by the Spiritualist Church. It has, everybody there is, medium or healer or, something like that. And I had gone for a very intensive 3-day weekend for a program called Spiritual Insight Training, which was a combination of mediumship, meditation, and energy work. And that was my first introduction to energy. And when I was doing an energy healing on a gentleman who I had never met before, so as I was doing hands-on, this gentleman turned around and looked at me and said, "Do you do Reiki?" I said, "No." I didn't even know what it was, to be honest. And he said, "Okay." He goes, "Well, I'm a Reiki master. And if you don't do Reiki, you should be, because the vibrational energy is different in someone who does Reiki."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah, I didn't really think anything about it. And I
Did you
went home.
know what that is at that stage?
No, I had no idea what it was.
Wow.
I knew it was like an energy thing, but I had no idea. And I went home and didn't think about it. couple months later, I was on Google and I thought, you know what? I'm just for fun, I'm going to research it. I'm going to go online. So I searched Reiki classes and then my area. And I was looking at, the listings, and I clicked on the second one because I'm all about intuition, and my intuition was like, click there. And I opened it up, and, a woman with a very kind face. And it's amazing how much you can get even through pictures on the internet, energy wise. And I scrolled down and, Reiki level 1, Reiki level 2, Reiki master teacher, like perfect. I can do everything with one woman. And then I kept scrolling down a bit further. And I actually ended up phoning her and saying, this is going to sound like an odd question. I saw your website. Do you live at, and then, this street and this street, cross streets? And she's like, yeah, you live across the street from me.
Wow.
Yeah. I said to her, I can see your house from my front door. You're like right over there.
Wow.
And I had never met her before. I had been here at that point, oh my gosh, 18 years, and had never met her. And it's funny because when you do your Reiki training, and it's also something that I discuss with my students, there is a saying that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So, proof of that. Anyway, so I started my training with her. I finished my master teacher, and then I wanted to delve further into the whole metaphysical aspect. And I decided that I wanted to do my ordination as a metaphysical minister. And I did that here in Canada. It's very different than a lot of other countries. Like the US, for example, you can be ordained online. You fill out a form, you pay your fee, and boom, look, you're ordained. Here, you have to study, you write exams, you have to join a governing body. They have to refer you. You have to have a police check. You have to have personal references, like all that sort of thing, because you're registered with the government. So I went through all of that, obtained my ordination, and I was doing a lot of Reiki training. I was doing a lot of weddings, and then COVID hit. And here in Canada, we had a lot of time. We were shut down for the first 2 years. So really it kind of started reducing down what I could do. And that's when I got more into the online aspect and working with people online energetically. And then discovering how ingrained the patriarchal culture is in the women that I was working with. Like
What exactly did you see? I'm very curious.
Okay, let me preface this by saying I am a feminist. So don't take anything I say the wrong way. What I saw was women trying too hard to be men, trying to do the things that the men were doing in the same way the men were doing. I worked in corporate. I saw it. And, the culture here is so much, like you said, about the hustle and the grind and pushing and working 60 hours a week. And if you're not working 60 hours a week, then you're not actually, working enough.
Yeah.
And with women, they're trying to do all of this while at the same time, spouse or partner, house, children, family. And for an example, the burnout rate in corporate women is 58%. In men, it's only like 47. So obviously, we're doing something wrong. There has to be an easier way. And that's when I started looking into feminine energetics specifically. I still work with the entire body, the entire energetic body, but focusing on feminine energetics and how you can use your strengths. You're ingrained, born with strengths to succeed, as opposed to trying to succeed like a man. And in doing that, I started with myself. And all of a sudden, I'm working 40 hours a week. I'm successful. I'm earning more money than I ever have. Yet I still have time for my family. I still
Mm.
have time for, massage, monthly massage and a facial and me time to just, fill my cup so that I have to give. And it was just so much easier. And that's when I decided it was something that I needed to share.
So, and that is beautiful and powerful, and I relate to most of it. I was in corporate myself. I was doing all those things, and I was doing the grinding, and I was trying to match my male colleagues
Mhm.
because my managers and everyone around was doing the same. They were playing the same game.
Yeah.
And well, some people were better at that than others. I hated it. Like I hated it.
Mhm.
I would like to dive into that piece where you said much easier. So I would like this for myself and the listener as well to understand what exactly, because you will agree that many people find it hard to believe how slowing down is even an option, or how you manage to get things done when you slow down.
Yeah.
So what's behind that little word, easier?
So you've heard the term work smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
So what I found is, okay, so the difference between feminine and masculine when it comes to things like the workplace. And I mean, I work with corporate women, but I also work with business owners because, they both face the same things. And when you're working from a masculine energy, it's all about the doing, right? It's about pushing, it's about structure and movement and um, independence. Whereas when you're working from the feminine, it's much more about easing back. It's about using your intuition. It's about teamwork. It's about creating instead of consuming.
Mm.
And in doing that, you are able to still get everything done, but it's not as difficult. And when it's something that you're using that is a natural gift that you've been given, it's not as full of effort, right? When you're pushing and you're pushing and you're grinding, and the reason you're doing that is because that's not where your strengths lie. It's all about anchoring into our strengths as women and the strengths of female energy. Now, don't get me wrong, you still will work in the masculine at times. You have to. That's how things get done. But it's a matter of, for example, you're in the masculine to set everything up, right? So I actually am launching an online Reiki Level 1 course, like an independent learning on Teachable. So the masculine in me was drafting and designing the PowerPoint presentation and doing all of the recordings and building the program. But then the feminine in me is going to hit post and then just ease back
Right.
and receive, right? So when you're working in corporate, you're still going to have those moments where you are in the masculine energy of production. But it's a matter of putting things in place and then just allowing things to happen without having that strong need to control, right? Like allowing someone else to step in. Okay, here's this thing I've done. Here's A to Z. My part is done. Now you take it and you do what you need to. It's working together for growth as opposed to trying to do it all yourself. And like I said before, it's following your intuition. I don't know how many times, I'm like, you know what? That doesn't feel right. So I change it as opposed to trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole. if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm listening to you and I'm recognizing those discoveries in me as well, over the last while. And, I was wondering, you mentioned intuition. How do you, so I think, and a lot of people, I used to have that, and still I'm working on it. And for many people, intuition is something they struggle to grasp on, as in, like, how do I know that whatever potentially I'm feeling is real and I should follow? Or is it just my, I don't know, fantasy of some sort? How do you distinguish?
First off, the more you use it, the easier it gets, right? I've always used my intuition, always. I even, 30 years ago, if my stomach, I used to say I would get a nudge in my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And like for me, when I'm experiencing something intuitive, it's like butterflies in my stomach.
Right.
And I learned to recognize that. And I found when I ignored it afterwards, I would be like, oh, that's why, right? Because something would happen. An example for you. When I was, excuse me, I was working in a city where I would commute an hour there and an hour back on a very busy highway. And I was at work the one day, got in my car to drive home. Intuition, all of a sudden something is going, you know what? Let's go the back route instead. Let's take the back roads, the country roads, instead of taking the highway. Adds an extra 15 minutes onto my trip, so I don't normally do that. But I was like, okay, I'm listening. There must be a reason. Got in my car and started driving. As I'm driving, I hear on the radio that there was an accident on the highway. And it would have been right when I was there.
Mm.
So I don't know if my intuition was stopping me from being in the accident or stopping me from being stuck on the highway for 2 hours while they cleaned up the accident. And it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I listened, and it will never lead you wrong. And the more you use it, the easier it gets to recognize it.
Yeah, and I think you said something that is very important. And what really helped me at some point is that intuition kind of speaks through your body,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So we have these, and because body kind of knows, and body has these, I don't know, detectors,
Mhm.
something like that, right? And it speaks and it tells, it reacts before we even realize.
Yeah.
So like sometimes I get an urge to do something, I don't know, to send a message to somebody, and it's like, since I started noticing that, it's like my body, my hands move towards the keyboard. It's very
Mhm.
interesting. Like it's almost like I just need to agree with my body and it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
if you find, and this happened to me the other day, actually a couple weeks ago, I don't know why, but someone I hadn't seen in probably a year and a half just kept popping into my mind. No idea why. Hadn't been thinking about him. I just, and it would not go away. And that, so I'm like, okay, that's fine. Hopped on the text. I'm like, hey, for some reason, I've been thinking about you today. I just want to reach out and say, Merry Christmas, and I hope everything's well. And oh, that's great. Thanks so much. Yeah, so I mean, it was just a very simple discord,
mhm.
but it allowed me to follow that intuition. I don't know why I had to reach out to him, but I had to reach out to him. And my
Yeah.
body was very insistent that it was going to keep popping into my brain until I did.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing when we can dial into that. So, how do you think it could get help entrepreneurs and business owners in a more practical way? How could they start using it? The intuition and, energy.
Mhm.
How,
So, I'm going to start with balancing your energy. and learning your energy, because everything's going to start from that. When I work with the women that I work with, I am working on teaching them feminine energetics and how to use it. But at the same time, I'm teaching them about their body's energy entirely. I'm teaching them the chakras. I'm teaching them how to recognize blockages. I'm teaching all of that because everything starts with that, right? You have to know your body to understand what to look for and then go from there. When it comes to professional life, the ways I use intuition and I think is helpful for anybody in a either business owner or a corporate aspect. When you meet somebody, what is your first impression? I usually know right away if this is someone I can trust or not. When we met, it was like we've known each other forever.
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
When I look at something, if I'm reading something, someone gives me a plan of action on some sort of project, and you're reading it, okay, what is standing out? What's making you go, hang on a second, this doesn't sound right, this doesn't feel right? And then adjusting it accordingly. It is working with people. When you can anchor into your intuition, it gives you the ability to know how to deal with certain people, right? Because everybody's going to take things differently. And when you can I'm also an empath, so that helps. But when you can understand what it is that they need or where they're coming from, it makes it easier for you to present things in a way that they get and they appreciate.
Yeah. So how about that saying, you said, instantly know, where the whole society is saying, don't judge the book by the cover.
Absolutely.
But it's kind of this controversy in that, but I concluded the same thing as you said as well. Like what we sense is instant and is the truth, then we try to rationalize, and then maybe that's when we come up with the judgment by the cover, that follows that next moment, maybe,
You know what, though? To me, when I hear the term don't judge a book by its cover, that is more of a high level visual almost, right? It's very disconnected when you judge that way. I will get into someone's energy. That's different, right?
Yeah.
As like when we first met and we started talking, right away I felt your energy and I understood. So saying, it felt like we knew each other forever or whatever, that is anchored deeper than a simple high level, oh, I don't like the way they look.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yes.
you can know quickly, and it's
Yes.
not judgmental. It's
Yeah.
by interpreting the vibes that you're getting from that person.
Yes. And so most people in our society still ignore that. And that's why I think that saying exists and kind of makes sense, right, on that level. So in terms of, especially for women, let's say, you're talking to somebody who is stuck in the grind, she's not getting the results that she's expecting. She knows at some level that she's meant for more, and she kind of knows that something is off, and I had that. I used to have that sense of longing, depth, or it's funny. I remember when I got out of 9 to 5 and became an entrepreneur, I used to be happy to hear just do you. But then I realized what the hell does that mean? You know, eventually was like, what is it? Like, I know I'm so happy. Yes, finally I can be myself. But then in a while, you know, I was modeling this person and that person, blah, 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 you know, this, you know, find who has what you want and do what they do kind of thing, you know. But then I realized, like, you know what, that's not my voice, but I wasn't sure how to find my voice, you know. So there was a stretch of time where I was confused. I was still doing things, but I was not very happy. You know, so how could somebody start unpacking who they really are, you know, and embracing their voice?
I think, and my answer is actually going to be similar to what I said before. It all begins with learning your own energy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you become aware of yourself, you become open to more ideas. I have tried a bunch of different things. You know, I mean, in my career, I've had dozens of jobs. And I would go back to school and learn something new. And then I'd go back to school and learn something new. And then I would learn, you know, and move and change. And it's funny because the only consistency I've had has been the energy work.
Mm-hmm.
That is the longest I've ever done anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when you are trying, I used to always say, and I went through the same thing, you know, you have everything you need and you should be happy, but there's just something missing,
Yeah.
right? There's something you've been put into this box that society has said you should be in as a spouse, as a mother, as an employee, as a woman. So the first thing you need to do is throw that box in the garbage. But in order to do that, you need to be more familiar with yourself. And it's all a learning process. No one is going to figure out everything in, 4 weeks. It doesn't happen. It is an ongoing process. It's going to last your entire life. I'm still learning new things. I just actually today got my certification as a hypnotherapist.
Wow.
That's something, 12 years ago, I wouldn't have even thought about. But then I'm thinking, okay, this is something I could really use with my clients that would help reinforce things that they're learning and things that they're discovering in themselves. Um, and once you become comfortable with yourself, things become a lot more clear.
And how can someone start learning their energy?
Well, they could work with someone like me or you.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Is there anything they could do or maybe pay attention to, like starting today?
you know what? There's always great videos on YouTube for someone who wants to kind of investigate this first themselves. It's difficult because I found, and this was only my experience, although this has also been, the experience of people I've worked with. One-on-one tends to make changes faster than trying to do it yourself. So when I was learning Reiki, learning it through my teacher and understanding what I was supposed to feel and how things were supposed to work and what I needed to do was much easier than trying to teach it to myself from the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Same with meditation. Back when I first started teaching meditation, when it first got into meditation, it was through YouTube. It was watching YouTube videos of guided meditations. Because when you start, you always start with guided because you can't quiet your mind enough right away in order to meditate in silence. And learning little tricks as you go. But learning to listen means learning your body, and learning your body takes time, and learning your energy takes time. Like when I was younger and always said I would get like, I said a little butterflies in my tummy when my intuition was kicking in. Well, it wasn't until I actually started learning about personal energy that I realized, oh, wait, that's my solar plexus. That's my solar plexus that's getting my attention, right? Or when you're about to go up on stage or speak in front of, in front of a boardroom or a conference room, and you get that lump in your throat and the nerves start. Well, guess what? That's your throat chakra, right? So it's learning those things and how they present physically that allows you to learn how to clear them and move forward with it. So, self-study is great. If you want to do it quicker, you have to work with someone one-on-one. But if you just want to do a self-study, it will take some time, but it can be done.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like that pretty much with everything, including your marketing strategies, your sales, your anything, right? It's a short, getting someone to work with you is really a shortcut. But
Yeah.
what do you think is blocking people from getting into this kind of work?
Like,
Internally, maybe internally, what isn't that
okay.
inside of them that would mean like, you know what, I'm not like, it's not gonna work for me maybe, or I don't know where to start, or maybe it's something, it's too intangible or something, along those lines.
So first would be fear of the unknown, right? We're all like that. We all have fear of things we don't understand. So it is the first, line of defense would be to educate yourself. Even if it's just a matter of, sitting down with someone and chatting, sitting with a friend, sitting with a colleague, sitting with a mentor, doesn't matter. And understand what it is and how it works. And then I think that makes it easier to move forward, to fix it. I don't want to say fixing because it's not fixing, but to developing what needs to be developed. Nobody ever needs to be fixed, by the way. I hate when people use that term. Everyone is perfect the way they are. If they want to expand, that's great, but no one ever needs to be fixed. So, like I said, just getting a little bit of knowledge about it, how it works, and a little bit of understanding. And then if you want to dabble a little bit, dip your toe in maybe and see if this is something that might pique your interest. Like I said, when I was first introduced to it, I was told about it and I completely ignored it for months. Right? But when you're ready, you'll move forward.
Yeah, I think, um, maybe it's about, getting curious about it. If someone has been grinding for a while, if someone has been trying to get the results, whatever the results they, said at some point they wanted, and it hasn't been working out, maybe it's a sign that they could try or get curious about something completely different, other than just another strategy or method, And obviously, one of keys that I talk about on this podcast is about, and the word becoming doesn't work for me anymore. It's more like unbecoming, right?
Yes.
But basically being the person who can do the thing, and being goes way beyond the mainstream personal development.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and the other reason, and let me know what you think, potentially some people can be blocked by the fear of the external by the reaction from the external world, right? What are others gonna think? What is my spouse gonna think? Right? Do you, like, what could you say to that?
So I can actually speak to that from firsthand experience. My husband does not understand what I do. And my youngest son does not understand what I do. My eldest son steals my crystals all the time. So, right? So there are going to be people in your life who don't understand it, and that's okay. You know, that's not your responsibility. You are your responsibility. What they understand is their responsibility. And if they, want to research it and figure it out and discuss it, that's fantastic. If they don't, that's okay too.
And how do you balance, what you're doing, maybe potentially what you want to talk about, how you approach things, and I imagine not just your business, but maybe even day-to-day things as well, with a completely different perception of other people.
It's actually not as difficult as one would think. When I am choosing something based on my intuition, my husband knows to trust that. He doesn't understand how it works, but he knows to trust it. When I talk about, or when I am doing things with Reiki, I've given him Reiki. He's experienced it. Doesn't mean he understands everything about it, but he knows how it feels. When he gets sick, will he come to me and say, hey, can you give me a Reiki treatment? Absolutely not.
Love that. That is cool.
But maybe I give him one from a distance and he doesn't know. So, and I used to do that with my kids too when they were in university. If one of them was having a hard time, full of anxiety because it was exams or were sick or whatever, I would give them distance Reiki. And they didn't necessarily need to know about it. But, and let me preface this by saying I would never do that to someone I don't know, because that is completely against all ethics. But when it's your immediate family, it's a little bit different. So they've all experienced it and they've all experienced the benefits of it. Sometimes they just don't know that they've experienced it.
Yeah, when it's like, when people send prayers to someone, this is not exactly the same, but something along those lines, like if it's a good thing, right?
Yeah, but you know what? It is quite similar, because it is, when you say, I'm sending prayers, they're sending positive thoughts and energy.
Yeah.
Right? So is it the exact same thing? No. But it's amazing how many things energetically and metaphysically are very similar to people who might not necessarily believe in that. And people just don't realize it. So, sending positive thoughts, sending prayers, that's the exact same thing as sending energy.
Yep.
Even things like holidays, right? Like, Yule was before Christmas. See, almost the exact same thing, different backgrounds. When you see churches that do like the laying on of hands, I actually had a student in one of my Reiki classes who grew up in one of those churches. And she commented how it was very similar to doing Reiki. Right? They are doing the laying on of hands to help you heal or relieve pain or whatever. Well, that's what Reiki does. So it's just, everything is energy. It's just a matter of how it's interpreted in its use.
And I think this is where people struggle, the actual understanding that everything is energy. and that everything is connected to everything. I think
Yes.
that's where people really struggle to internalize that.
Yeah.
But I think what helps and what helped me, and I have a funny story as well, observing. Like when you start observing things that happen in your life, and when coincidences become too many for them to be coincidence, like, oh, wait, maybe this is real, And funny stories like recent for the last, I don't know, half a year now, and increasingly more often, I keep seeing the number patterns.
Mm.
First, it started on the clock, on all the clocks, any clocks, at home, on the phone, everywhere, Then even today or yesterday, I was watching a YouTube video and the whoever was doing the video picked up her phone and kind of turned it a little bit, and her phone was showing 12:12. The time on the phone was 12:12. When I pause the video, also I get things like 12:21 and all sorts of pause at that exact time. And I started showing that to other people, and I started showing that to my second half, and he would be like, that you just look at your phone too often, you at the time too often. Now, and I think he did it today as well. He keeps sending me screenshots from his phone with with the number patterns. I started pointing that to him, and now he started seeing them as well. And
Mhm.
can no longer say, this is something like whatever, like, I don't know, coincidence after coincidence after coincidence. Like today, I don't know, maybe I saw something like that 30 times at this stage.
Yeah.
Yesterday or 2 days ago, somebody on Facebook, somebody commented it on my comment on her post in one of the groups, and she said, wow, you are number 111 who left reaction on my post. I was like, oh my God, even this way it's manifesting.
Mhm. Have you ever gone online and researched the numbers? Because a lot of times they're angel numbers.
Wow. I have not.
You should.
I have not. I
Yeah.
will.
A lot of the patterns have a representation.
And number one is shows very often. So in sort of
Mhm.
like 1441, 1331, 1111, things like that. And it's so funny
Yeah.
to notice that and it's becoming more and more often.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
mind.
It's funny every time, and I don't even know I'm doing it half the time. Every time I see the number 1111, I'm like, oh, out loud, it's 1111, make a wish.
Yes, yes, I heard
I
that.
do it to my kids, my husband, everybody.
Yeah, and I heard somewhere that and even for manifestation, when those synchronicities happen, not that you need to do something for synchronicities to happen, but when they do happen, it's almost like a call to action. Go and do something, go initiate something, maybe go, make a wish or something like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, very cool. So I love, it's almost like a game as well. Like so I think it's essential to start observing more because those things are happening all the time. We just don't see them. So for
Yes.
anyone who is struggling to accept or to somehow internalize that everything is energy, I think observing helps. And how do you think women can use, well, I should say, the way visibility in business is perceived more through the lens of how many likes you get, how many, followers you have, but from your perspective, I imagine, and from energy perspective, visibility is something different, right?
Absolutely. The one thing that I always remind everybody, nothing on social media is real. You know, you see these people, you know, celebrating this and celebrating that, and oh, I just hit 1 million followers. Well, that's great, but how many of those 1 million are you actually impacting? That's the important thing.
Mm.
I would rather see someone with 5,000 followers who makes a difference in 1,000 people's lives than someone with 1 million followers who makes a difference in 100 people's lives. So I tend to not be attached to the numbers when it comes to things like followers and likes and that. I'm more attached to, have I made an impact? And has anyone gotten anything useful from what I've said?
Yeah, and I think it's the energy that goes through that noise
Mhm.
and all the competition and all the, I mean, it's useful to know frameworks, but if there's no energy in your message, even if you are following a framework, and I am a framework person, like I mean a copywriter. So
Mhm.
I know that stuff very well, right? Thankfully, I'm an empath as well. So my copy always from the very beginning was infused with energy naturally, you know. Uh, and even when I write it for someone else, and they were like, "Wow, how did you manage to reflect to describe my life so well?" You know, so that's always nice to hear. But really, the visibility is not about following or learning a framework very well. It's about what energy you put in your message, right? And it doesn't
Exactly.
really matter. Like that impact. And so I added to my marketing strategies now to uncover leverage, because I do like leverage is one of my favorite words. And the way I love doing marketing and selling is um, using a lot of leverage. And believe it or not, it comes down mostly to returning to your roots, to rerouting into yourself, mostly before everything else, before you do market research, before you, do any frameworks, and I can feel it myself as well. Sometimes I feel, okay, this message, I posted it because I gotta post something. And I'm like, whatever. And this other message that I crafted while sitting in a meeting of some sort and just got an impulse. I need to write about this.
Mhm.
It's like 5 minutes, it's out. And it's like, wow, it feels good to me. And it feels good to everyone else then that
Yeah.
way.
I think audiences they can feel the authenticity behind the posts that we put out.
Yeah.
You know, I've done the same thing. You need a filler post because, you know, you have to put something out, but you're just swamped and don't have time. I've actually come to the point now where I've stopped doing that.
Mm,
And I would rather post authentically 3 times a week than inauthentically 7.
exactly. Yes. And I would like people to hear that.
Mhm.
It's, by the way, I believe it's way, and the time for me is now quite nice as well. Uh, once, um, it's much better to post to produce less impact. Like it's more productive sometimes to just stop
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
gather the energy and then go with that energy.
Yes. Yeah. Do you know human design at all?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a manifesting generator. What are you?
Okay. I am a generator as well, sacral authority. And as generators, especially if you have a sacral, um, part of your success is only putting those things out there that really mean something to you,
Yes.
right? Like if you write a post and you read it And if you know how to listen to your body and your body says, don't put it out because it's not going to get the reception that you need. If you read a post or you write a post and you read it, like you said, and you're like, this is awesome. I love this. And you put it out, it's going to be received so much better. And I think people need to learn to listen to them, especially business owners who are using social media for marketing. Listen to yourself when you read your post. If you read it and it doesn't feel authentic and it doesn't give you like a hell yes, don't bother putting it out there.
And it's time wasted. Time and energy.
Yeah.
Time and energy wasted. And I remember I used to sometimes, okay, I need to post something today. I start crafting it in the morning. By lunch, I'm not sure what I'm writing. By afternoon, I'm still editing. And it's like, man, I don't want that. But I don't post it, but I have wasted hell knows how much time on it. So I would really, really, really love people to hear this, that if it doesn't feel right, like somebody said, if it's not a heck yay, then it's heck no, nay, you know. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not, because it really needs to feel like, I mean, yeah, I mean, people waste so much energy and time doing, being influenced by whatever. And I know it's not easy to get out of your head or block out everything that you've learned or you heard or somebody told you, or I don't know, external validation. How do you deal, by the way, what can you say about external validation? I think this is one of the big things in our industry, that everyone expects what others like. I'm not even talking about haters and nasty comments. I think entrepreneurs eventually develop that muscle, even if it comes from the logical mind. But for me personally, was what I was in the trap of thinking of what experts would think about my stuff, my messages, my posts, whatever, like as in somebody who I thought was better than me. That used to be my problem.
Yeah, I think a lot of us go through that. And I think and I'm sure you're probably at this point too, you get to the point where their opinion really doesn't matter. If it's true to you, if it reflects you correctly, if it feels good to your energy, and you feel that it is something that you want to share, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yes. Yes. And I just want to remind everyone that energy work really helps to get to that place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm looking at the time, and it's been awesome and it's been amazing. I absolutely love this topic.
Me too.
Yes, it feels like it's the truth. Like it feels like it's the core. Oh,
Yeah, I
everything.
know. Yeah, we come from very similar places, and it's kind of nice to have someone that understands. And it's been an absolute joy being on here. I always love talking to you. But yeah, it just I get excited at the thought of people learning this and hearing this. And I mean, my only hope for this is that someone has taken something from this that's been helpful.
And they will, and they will. And I thank you for the kind words. And I want to thank you for being here and sharing this.
My pleasure.
Thoughts, all the energy, all the ripples, they are spreading just because we're talking about it.
Exactly, exactly. And I do have to let everybody know who sees, I mean, if they're listening, they don't see it, but if they're on YouTube and they see this, the matching colors in the shirts was not planned. We just sat down together and realized it.
Mhm.
So, synchronicities, and we had the same energy coming into this and wanted to reflect that in what we were wearing.
Yeah, and that's the exact same color. It's
I
crazy.
know,
The same
I
shade. It's
know,
crazy.
I
Okay.
know.
So look, thank you so much. But before I let you go, I usually ask 3 blitz questions.
Okay.
Uh, Brief, short, you know, um, nothing much. So the first question is, and I think I saw that word on your somewhere when I was looking you up. So I think that's the other thing that kind of is the touch point, the word grace. Use it somewhere, right?
Yes.
Um, so when you hear from grind to grace, what goes through your mind?
As soon as I read that, my first thought was moving from inauthentic to authentic and easy.
Yes, yes, that's a huge part of what I'm talking about. Thank you. Okay, the next one is, what change would you like to see in the world?
I would really like to see people be nicer to each other. And I think once everybody realizes that everything is energy and we are all connected, that will start to happen.
Yes, yes, me too, same here. And from what I'm seeing, the tendency is that people talking about this topic, they are multiplying, this is growing, and
Yes.
and there will be a point somewhere where there will be more than 50% of us, or we don't, as you know, we don't even need 50%. We don't need this even it needs to be, this is power. So few people can affect many, many, many more people, right? So I think this is coming through people like you, who are doing this beautiful work, for sure. And the last question is, what impact would you personally like to make on the world and humanity?
The impact I would like to make would be to reach enough women to understand how they can change to make their lives easier so that it becomes the majority of women and they
Mhm.
can share with each other and pass the blessings on.
Yes, love that. Love that. Super important. So, on that note, by the way, I'm going to ask the listener to please follow and share this. So, we do make this stuff the default in our industry. That's the goal. And so, thank you, Kelly, so much for being here. The last question is about you. How do you help people, and where can they find you?
Sure. So my website is Radiant Femme, FEMME, .ca. I'm also Kelly Radiant Femme on Instagram. And I am going to be sharing as I mentioned, a new program, self-taught program, which will be on Teachable, but you'll be able to see the announcements with links on the other profiles.
Okay, very good. I am going to put all the links in the show notes so people can find them easily. And again, it was delightful, and thank you so much for being my guest.
Oh,
Love,
absolutely my pleasure.
yeah, and so for everyone else, thanks for listening. I hope you got value from this. Please share, please follow, Share this with your friends. Share with anyone you think could benefit from this. Thanks for listening again, and I'll talk to you in a week. And bye for now.